Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. We are here today to continue with our part 2 of the introduction to teaching online. And first of all, I just would like to say a big thank you to all of those who have already watched the part 1 video. And in case you have missed that video, I will put the cover here in the description box so that you can just, go to it, have a look, and of course, give me your feedback. I truly appreciate the feedback and, of course, the suggestions that I have received, and I'm super glad that you enjoyed that webinar and found it valuable. So, what we're going to be doing in the next few minutes is, of course, diving into our session today and going back to our topic about introduction to teaching online. And today we will be talking about the top 10 tips that I have put together based on what I have read and what I think will be valuable into really harnessing your skills into virtual facilitations. So let me re-emphasize that the key role that you play in your students' learning experience is very critical to their success. So the 10 tips that I'm putting together today and sharing with you are the tips that hopefully will give you some idea on how to kind of reflect on your behaviors, on those techniques, and probably experiment on your own. And as I mentioned in part one, you as facilitators, as teachers, are the key. It is true that a virtual classroom does not have walls, there's no rows of desk, there's no desk, and of course, end of class bell, right? Or yung favorite ng mga bata, ang recess. But it has that most critical component of any successful classroom. And of course, ikaw yon, yung dedicated teacher like you who present, make it fun to make sure that your students are well engaged para naiintindihan talaga nila ang progress nila sa school. And as teachers, hindi ka lang facilitators. You are also the guide, not only for your students, but also for their parents. How to navigate the online classes, how to gather the thoughts of your students, and then attract their interest so they become really involved in the learning. And of course, increasing their awareness and active use of the available resources. Technology pa man din yan or any reading materials, yung mga homeworks na binibigay nyo, kailangan na maging interesado sila doon so that they can really kind of partner with you in expanding their knowledge. Okay? So itong part 2 na to, as I'm putting it here on the screens, are tips, and talagang ang dami kong binasa. That's the reason why it took me a week before I can introduce this part 2, because tinitingnan ko siya talaga from the angle and perspective of a teacher, an educator, as a parent, and of course, as a learner or students. Kaya talagang pinag-isipan ko tong top 10 tips na to. Of course, we have different preferences. So, yung mga virtual trainers out there, virtual teachers, parents, students, feel free to comment down below. Kasi tell me kung ano yung nawawala dito sa presentation, kung ano yung maidadagdag nyo, or perhaps there's something that you'd like to get to know more of or get more information about. Don't be shy to just type it in the chat pods. I do check my comments. So if there's anything that I can help you with, feel free to do that too. And I put together the following 10 tips, which I think, based also on my personal experiences, are the foundation of effective online teacher. And as always, I always invite you guys to share your insights and thoughts on the comment box below. Para kung may other tips kayo, may techniques kayo na nag-work na, especially yung mga naunang nag-roll out na ng virtual training, i-share mo na yan. So, para lahat tayo matuto dito, including myself. I keep on learning. I don't know everything, lalo na yung mga new generation ngayon. Iba na ang preferences nila and their mode of training, I would say, is much more advanced to my generation kasi talagang very tech savvy na ngayon ng mga bata. So, let's start with our top 10 tips. So the first one, I'm sure this will not be a surprise kasi ito na lang talaga ang ginagawa natin, di ba, all the time. is preparation. Now, as you are the key to the success of your students' learning experience, you need to prepare yourself. Prepared ka ba? Mentally, physically, and emotionally. Hindi pwede yung medyo grumpy ka pa, then you'll go to the class. You bring that kind of ambience with you. So make sure that not only are you prepared with your materials, but your full thoughts and emotions are prepared with you. So hindi natin maiwasan na there are mornings when we are grumpy. I get that too. Do something that will help you kind of clear your thoughts. Probably yoga or listening to music or just take a walk para ma-clear nyo ang mind nyo. And these 3 points here, which is plan, prepare, and perform. Importante yan. Kasi talagang dyan nakalaan or, your success depends on these 3 steps, I would say. So, your goal of your daily lesson, ano ba ang goal mo sa araw na yon? Ano ba ang topic na i-introduce mo? Is this a topic that maybe familiar na yung student from their previous class? Or is it something new na they really need to do probably a pre-reading before coming into the class? Kasi lalo na sa virtual platform, right? We only have very limited time. So we have to make it fast, exciting, and easy to understand. And of course, what is the key learning? So at the end of the session, you also have to kind of keep in mind what are the key learnings takeaway that you want your students to go out with. And don't worry about using a checklist. Sometimes, let me just share this with you. Itong checklist na to, ito nakita ko sa internet, with the lesson plans. Ito yung checklist na nakita ko, yung pag magpe-prepare ka sa lesson plan. Don't be shy kasi, we tend to forget, I tend to forget a lot. So I need to write down things that I need to do. So, ganun din yun. And, when you are facilitating online, kumbaga in a movie, you are the main star of the event. So, kailangan alam mo yung script in and out. And talagang ang preparation mo sa lesson plan is very precise na kasi talagang mga bata, nahihirapan pa sila sa virtual environment, especially if they're not used to that. So don't worry about that kasi honestly we are very busy all the time, so it's literally impossible to remember everything you need to do. So put some lesson plan checklist. Probably this particular format here that I'm sharing will be able to help you. And of course, the next one preparation is your presentation slides. Now, may mga nakita na akong presentation slides based on mga classes na na-attend ko. Most of them are my kids' classes. And they are quite good. And what I realized is that, when you are facilitating adult versus children, sa children, medyo kailangan limitahan mo yung words on the screen. You have to limit that because, there should be not a lot of content on the page, right? You have to really transform your lesson plan from words into visual because children are very visual. And make sure that when you create your slide, make it simple, clear, and straightforward. And virtual classroom presentation slides should not be too busy with colorful fonts. Minsan masakit sa mata yung mga yellow. So try to make it simple pero fun, and straightforward lang dapat ang short with relevant pictures. So ito nakita ko din to sa online. For me the color is just right. The yellow is just the right tone of yellows. So ganito lang ang gawin nyo, very simple. Ang daming tutorial dyan at saka ang daming libreng template. Please search and don't be afraid to experiment and use them. The next point around preparation is yung activities. You need to consider the various activities that you would like to embed into your lesson, be it an online activities, probably during a Q&A, or during the live class, may Q&A ba si teacher, or perhaps use analytics or polls to engage your students. Meron akong mga activities, the virtual platforms that I use. I will do some live stream demos. So together, kung may question kayo right away, we can answer that via chat, or I can even give you some time to ask me on the live session. So watch out for my channel. Kaya make sure that you subscribe and you get notified with the bell para alam nyo kung kailan ako magla-live streams on my live tutorials. Tapos yung one of the things that I've experienced with my children's schooling, yung teacher nila, she was well prepared with props. I think that was very important in order to engage your audience kasi talagang nakikita nila, and the topic at that day was about the different jars in the Philippines. So talagang nagdala siya ng mga different jars, nang hiram pa siya sa mga kapitbahay. That's what I call dedication and preparation. Tapos, exercises or examples which you can ask your students to solve during class. What I've noticed is that when you are delivering a virtual class, there are times when the children might be a little quiet, or they don't really know when to answer yes or no, or they don't even want to tell you na, sometimes they don't understand. So as a teacher, you need to level up a bit, your role play, and make sure na mag-inject ka ng different activities just to utilize that, space, inquiring if your audience or if your learners are understanding or following kung ano man yung tiniteach mo. Do not forget your offline activities and make sure that the learning sticks. Kasi sometimes we always give homework, go to page this, go to page that. It might work in a classroom setup because in the following day you can check, 'di ba? May notebook sila. But in a virtual world, medyo mahirap. And yes, it's okay to ask your students to type it, send it to you, and pipicturean to send it to you. But ang big challenge is with you. Ikaw ang mahihirapan kasi maybe their pixels on their phone aren't so great. So mahihirapan ka makita mo. So may stress ka, di ba? So think of other ways. There are platforms or Facebook, create some games. I'm still exploring that aspect kasi for me, it's quite new as well. Yun lalo yung mga freebies. Marami akong nakita but with payments. Kaya, it's gonna be hard for all of us, diba? But I'm trying to look for free resources and software. I'll let you know, I'll keep you updated. But you have to be really creative and resourceful. Next, of course, under the preparation is your virtual classwork. Now, we emphasize the importance of preparation, di ba? But also, when you are going into a virtual classwork, it's very important that you also give time for your students to be equally prepared. Like I said earlier on, we have very limited time in a virtual platform. So there's really not much time for them or for you to read out and for them to understand and follow you. It does not work that way. Mahirap talaga sa limited timelines and the internet connections aren't great in Manila. So what you could do perhaps is give them some pre-readings, and when you're displaying your slides, just make some points and ask them, okay, Sharon, paki-explain mo what you understand about lesson plan, so that you are inviting them to really share their thoughts already kung ano yung nabasa nila. And it's good for you. Makikita mo rin kung fina-follow nila yung mga instruction mo after classes, di ba? Yun ang importante. So, also, keep note, send your lesson plan way ahead. Kasi hindi pwede naman padala mo 5 minutes before the class starts. So, magkakram yung child, di ba, to read. Wala rin papasok sa mind. So, try to send it a night before, or after your class. Send that immediately to all your students so that they have time to prepare from the night before the actual class next day. And of course, that is also the same approach for homeworks. We are now living in different times. Kung yung dati while we were in the classroom, you already hear a lot of complaints from students, from parents about too much homework. Well, let me tell you, it's harder and tougher when it's in a virtual platform. Kaya there is no exception. And again, my suggestion is to keep it short. Explore gamification, you again using other software, but again, that's a different topic kasi medyo mahirap talaga ngayon, hindi mo alam kung ano available. Medyo yung iba nag-start na charging people, so mahirap talaga maghanap ng freebies. But another thing that I think might work, and this is just based on my previous experience, is create a buddy program so you can pair your students into two. So itong two na to, after classes, they should arrange a Zoom class just between the two of them, and then they can discuss their homeworks. I know it's an extra level of work for you, pero you will also make sure na you are molding probably one of your top performer students to their leadership. Minomold mo na sila into leadership, and maybe a weaker students, na somebody who can they ask instead of always going to the teacher. At least they have that someone that they can ask, and over time as they work together as a body, it also flourishes the relationship. So it creates that camaraderie relationship between the students, and nahihila nila ang isa't isa. So keep that in mind. Matututo din sila ng independence and teamwork. So that's an additional point. So ito ang very big part natin. The tip number one, preparation in all aspects. Make sure na prepared ka talaga kasi it's easier for you to conduct a session when you are well prepared for the lesson on that day. Now, the next point, or what we call the tip number two, is around technology. Ang dami, di ba? So, ngayon makikita nyo talaga na naglalabasan ang different platform to support the online training. And while browsing, I do understand there are some free platforms that could readily available and can easily be used by anyone, which is good. Pero there are also some other platforms which charges money, a little bit harder, especially if your school is not sponsoring the charges or the cost, but they are much more powerful. Now, understanding your platform is very important. So, kung magfa-facilitate ka and you've decided to use Zoom, you have to understand the different tools that Zoom can operate on, and ask yourself, what are you comfortable with? What does your student needs? What are they comfortable with as well? And then you can also familiarize yourself with the tools. Hindi pwedeng hindi mo alam na kung paano i-on ang chat. Mahirap yon during the actual training kasi that's the time na limited lang ang oras mo, tapos everybody is still nangangapapa to find out how they can run the technology. So very important that you familiarize yourself, and probably try to log in 15 minutes early so that you can use the 15 minutes to set everybody up, relax, have them grab their water, keep their homeworks ready, and so on and so forth. And ito very important, guys, practice. Mag-practice ka. Before I'm recording this session today, so gumagamit ako ng ibang program. If you notice the part 1, medyo maliit yung picture ko, nasa taas lang. I was using a different platform. So this time I'm using a different platform, which I hope will be much more better. So I need to practice. Kasi pag ganito nagla-live recording na ako, ang hirap na hindi mo alam kung saan ka pupunta. Practice makes perfect. So kailangan ready ka, di ba? No, next is know the functionality. Like I said earlier on, kailangan alam mo kung paano i-activate ang chat, kung paano i-mute ang lahat para instead na may mga maingay sa background, and you don't have to ask everybody to mute individually. That takes time. Just mute it yourself and says, guys, you're muted at the moment. And if there's anybody who would like to comment or respond, feel free to unmute your line. So give time to also to your audience to get the used or to get used to the platform. So probably a page one which contains all the tutorials, a quick tip sheet for them that guys, if you have a question, make sure that you type it on the chat, or stop teacher at any point of time. We'll cover that in our etiquette later on. Tapos again, I cannot emphasize more on tutorials. Ang dami talaga. So if there's something I'd like to learn about new technologies, I just go to my friend YouTube or to Mr. Google. Although not everything is correct, or hindi lahat, what I call easy to understand or to follow. But at least ang dami mong choice, diba? And the next point is accessibility. How accessible is the platform? For example, if you'd like to use Google Classroom, what I realized while I was kind of having a deeper dive into how to utilize Google Classroom, the school needs first to be registered so that, a specific or a unique code will be generated for the school, and that code can be used by teachers in creating a virtual classroom. Plus, also keep in mind that when you're using Google Classroom, your student needs to have a registered Gmail account. So yung Yahoo account nila will not work, or iCloud nila, or whatever other email ID nila, hindi mag-work unless it's a Gmail account. So look for tutorials and accessibility talaga. Next, of course, is the interactiveness. So, are you sharing a lecture? Would you like to have a one-way communication? So, titingnan mo rin yung ano bang ililesson mo nung araw na yon. or perhaps you'd like to involve your students to the session. Example is, when you bring a poll, the polling system. I'll show you some examples during my live demo, but there is a poll, right, where you can ask your students, uh, which do you think is the biggest island, and then they can just select the right answer, and you can share that to your class. Or perhaps a chat pod, to share their thoughts and questions while you speak. So even though you are kind of giving a lecture, they can still convey the conversation with you via the chat pod. So keep that in mind, and try to think ano ba talaga ang gusto mo sa mga bata. And it's okay if you don't know everything now, or nag-experiment ka pa lang. Experimenting is part of learning. Lalo na pag limited ang time natin, di ba? So you have to really find innovative ways to utilize technology. Then comes our top three. Lagi ako nabubulol dito. Top three tip. And it's all about the students' expectations. Make sure that each and everyone in the class have an opportunity to understand what is expected from them. Kasi ang hirap na may gray area, hindi mo alam kung ano bang gusto ni teacher na gawin ngayon. And ang bata, what I notice is that they never ask. They feel so shy to ask because they might feel that, ba, hindi ka kasi nakikinig, kaya hindi mo alam. So normally, ganun ang reaction natin as a parent and as a teacher, di ba? So create that space na clear sila kung ano yung expected natin sa kanila. As you can see, your classroom expectations. So, similar din yan when you are in a virtual class. Have a virtual classroom expectation. One of them, as you can see here on the screen, is about advanced reading. So like I said, when you are exploring a new topic, and if it's something new to the students or the learners, give them time to prepare themselves, probably with a good reading, or sometimes books could be a little bit too monologue and very long. So try to get the points that you think you need to embed into their learning, and then tell them, okay, I have these 5 words. Can you find the 5 meanings of these 5 words while reading chapter 5? So again, at least nag extra read talaga mga bata, and they're trying to really understand and absorb what is being said on the book, or what's being thought from the book, diba? Next is scheduling. Importante to, lalo na if you want to have consistency in your class. Now, I know that there are times that internet might be down, but make sure that the timelines of the class are followed, consistent. Kasi if you say that the class will start at 10 a.m. on a daily basis, tapos biglang nawalan ka ng internet, naging 11, and then you send an email for the students to say, oh, we'll move it to 11. Medyo nakaka-disappoint from the parents and the children as well, kasi katulad ko, kung nag-work ako, so I just have to make sure that my kids are logged in before I go to work. So make sure that you try to stick to the timing that you set in the beginning of the class. Next is in between breaks. My goodness, ang hirap kayang maupo ng diretso ng continuous for 30 minutes, 'di ba? Make sure that you introduce the break system. I was reading this article on the net, and Consumer Insight Studies shows that the average human attention span is 8 seconds long, and if you think of that, it's way shorter than the average attention span of a goldfish, diba? So therefore, it can be very difficult to stay focused on one subject, and this is especially true during presentations like webinar. Kaya give them a 5 minutes break before you move on to the next subjects, especially if you've set 2 hours and it's subdivided into 3 subjects. Make sure that they have that 5 minutes in between breaks, just to probably grab something to drink, or just do a little bit of a stretch before going into the next subject. Next point is using chat area. Napansin ko sa classroom ng anak ko, they don't utilize the chat area. And it's okay kasi nga medyo bago pa. Pero think about this space kasi you need to add some guides kung paano to pwedeng gamitin, so that children will be comfortable in using the chats. Now, they need to be more responsible too, because sometimes what I see is chats are being used or being abused, di ba? They chat with their friends about, okay, ito ginawa ko, ganyan ginawa ko. So, create that, what I call that, what shall I call it? Medyo ano lang, balance lang. So if I were the teacher, what probably I would inject is a plus minus system, which means, plus mark for those who share their answers. And if it's correct, I give additional plus point if they share it on chat. And I give a minus point if somebody uses chat, which is not relevant to the training or the learning that we are doing on that day. So, medyo strict, pero 'di ba, over time you'll see that the kids will start following that too. Tapos, grading criteria. Importante ito. Have you shared the grading criteria sa mga estudyante mo? I mean, how much percentage of their marks will be from attending the virtual class? How much of their marks will be based on their interactiveness or their engagement in the virtual classroom, their homeworks, their outside homeworks? And are the parents clear too? Importante yon how the grading system would be, di ba? Para alam nila, and there will be no surprises about the overall marks per quarter. So, importante yan, clarify the students' expectations. Then, moving on to tip number 4, ito medyo connected to sa tip number 3. You need to create not only the guidelines, but also the etiquettes. Kasi, when you are in a virtual classroom, ang dami nating kailangan gawin to make it successful. And first of all, it starts with you. I like putting that there at number 1 kasi ikaw ang role model nila. So, they will look at how you are on video, if you're properly dressed, well-groomed, ifa-follow nila yon. So you can tell them, guys, when you attend an online class, make sure that you've combed your hair, you're properly groomed, maayos ang suot mo, and don't be late. As a teacher, you should not be late. Kasi nga, it starts with you eh. You're setting them a good example, di ba? Then, use proper language. Now, in our lifetime at the moment, in our current, hindi ko alam kung anong tawag sa generation na to. Pero we have to use proper language. I mean, there is a slang words, of course, LOL, BRB. Pero when we are in a classroom, we have to still encourage proper language. So make sure that you also emphasize that on the children, that they have to use the proper language when they are engaging with one another in a virtual classroom. Plus, using the mute button. And sometimes, many times, the kids are not aware of this mute button. So what happens is that, you can hear them talk in the background or their parents talk in the background. Or kung naririnig nyo, minsan tumatawa lang mga aso dito rin sa area ko. So, if you are not speaking, and you can emphasize that to your audience, now if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. But you can always unmute anyway naman kung may questions eh. And then using the camera. I like using the camera, but there are times na limited din ang paggamit ng camera mo, especially when you're using other platforms like what I use, Adobe Connect. Pag nag-live ako sa camera during an actual class, it takes a lot of bandwidth and it slows down my system. So, medyo problematic sa akin yun. But if you can use camera, please do so. Although, I would suggest to have a backup plan. So, if you've noticed in Zoom, if you are not using your camera, and if you're not able to use your camera, you can attach a photo. So, at least pag naririnig na estudyante mo ang boses mo, you can also still see your teacher. Kasi it has that impact talaga when you see the person talking to you on the speaker. Kasi importante din yun. And don't be afraid to share a list of do's and don'ts, just like what you see here on the right side of the screen. Di ba? Yung mga etiquette, do this, do that. It's okay. Like I said, you have to set expectations to your audience, to your students, so they know what is accepted and what is not acceptable. Then moving on to tip number 5, which again is I think equally important, kaya nga top 10 tips kasi ito talaga ang feeling kong importante, is communication. Make sure that you send regular and updated communication to the students, and if you can, to the parents too. So alam lang nila kung ano nangyayari, di ba? Make sure that you stay connected, not only during the actual class, but you also have to kind of send some messages just to follow up. Everything is okay? Do you understand? Any question, please feel free to comment. And make sure that you make that constant and consistent so that, your children knows when to get and how to receive the communication from you, especially if it's about pre-reading, homeworks, quiz dates, their learning curves. Share them with, share with them your contact kung saan ka pwedeng ma-reach, especially when you're facilitating other classes. It doesn't have to be a 24/7 type of open communication. You can set the limit too, but make sure that there is one place that they can connect to you. It could be through WhatsApp or it could be through Messenger, but make sure that there is a one area where they will feel comfortable in contacting you. And like I said, easy access group chat. So kung gusto mo mag-set ng group chat, and my kids' school have that, it's very helpful for me as a parent kasi nakikita ko talaga ang time ng if there's a changes on the time, homeworks, pre-readings, nakikita ko siya. So I can follow accordingly, diba? So create that group chats. And here you will see things again around timelines. Now, if you have agreed, what I mean about timelines in this particular point is, let's say nag-agree kayo ng test date or a quiz date or an exam date during your virtual class, make sure that you follow that with an actual email or a confirmation sa group chat so that there will be no unexpected surprises from anyone na ay akala ko ngayon, ay hindi, akala ko bukas, na ngayon na pala. So 'di ba lagi natin naririnig yan. So having reminders sent out will also be a good idea kasi sometimes nakakalimutan talaga, and we can't blame students at the moment, and parents, they're quite overwhelmed, and you too as a teacher. So make sure that you send reminders para at the end of the day, they cannot tell you, ay, teacher, hindi mo naman na-remind, or, wala naman reminder, nakalimutan namin. So they'll try not to have an excuse anymore, di ba? So for tip number 6 naman, and it's all about engagement. Importante ang engagement. And if you look in the dictionary, it's defined as our emotional involvement or commitment to something. So the more the kids are involved, the more that they are interested to participate in your class, right? And there are many ways and different actions that you can experiment on to increase students' engagement. First of all is you can try using discussion forums. Like I said, it could be that group chat, where they can ask questions, and you create this space where your students can freely share their thoughts and ideas. One of the things that I would remind you when you're using discussion forums, and if you are leading the conversation, utilize the style of using open-ended question. Ang open-ended question, let me give you an example. Instead of saying, okay, Sharon, did you understand our topic today? I could easily respond with saying, yes, sir, I understood. They can simply answer that with a simple yes or no, diba? Or even remain silent, like, tatango na lang and then titingin sa baba. Alam ko, ganyan na anak kong lalaki eh. So you can transform that question and ask them, tell me, what have you understand from our lesson today? So nakita mo, nag-transform siya agad. It's the same question, but when you convert it into an open-ended question, you really try to bring out what your student understands about the lesson and the topics. 'Di ba? Ang laki ng difference. Totally different game ball. Kaya whenever you ask a question to your class, use open-ended questions. And normally, an open-ended question, it starts with what, how, explain. Yan ang mga keywords that you can practice on. And next point is develop relatable activities. Now, ito na naman yung creativity nyo. Example, it could be asking a student to lead a class discussion. Yung alam mo talagang excited mag-raise ng hand, and someone who can really kind of lead the discussion ng classmate nila. Give them that chance or opportunity to shine, or probably start with a game or an activity or a whiteboard where you can, para lang siya, nagkagabi may nakita ako sa YouTube, it's Google Jamboard. So I'm exploring that, so it will be one topics in my future online tutorial, yung live session talaga. Pero in the meantime, if you're not used to that yet, you can always add a blank page in your presentation which you can use as a whiteboard, especially kung nasa Zoom kayo. Get to know your students, what interests them, and keep on experimenting. And it's normal that sometimes, you may not get a response from your audience or from your students. Okay lang yun, kaya nga tayo nag-experiment, di ba? But over time, you will see the slow transformation of everyone getting involved, especially kung medyo comfortable na sila sa system na gagamitin nyo. And again, about video, try to request for everybody to be on video if you can and if the broadband allows it. Kasi mas madali kayong makikita mo yung at least a little bit of their body language, di ba? Or kung nakikita mo parang hindi nakikinig or nawala na pala sa table mo yung bata or nawala na sa table niya, you can still kind of monitor that. And connecting besides the class, a group work. Again, ang biggest challenge natin about the new normal is that we have less human interpersonal skills, which means wala tayong a lot of engagement with other people in our class except on the virtual, diba? So create a group work since we have limited personal interaction, and encourage your students to connect together in virtual platform, probably when doing a group project. And that can happen when you create a student lounge. I'm exploring a student lounge, and I think there are places, again in Google, I'm still trying to explore in other external platform. If you have any idea or if you've used any of external platform which you think can accommodate having a student lounge, please feel free to comment here para makikita din namin yun, and I will learn that too if I see one. But at the meantime, what I can perhaps suggest is again utilize Messenger or WhatsApp or Viper, whatever is easier and accessible to you guys. Now, going to tip number 7. Nasa tip na number 7 na tayo. Ang bilis, diba? Different perspective. Now, I mentioned this in part 1, acknowledge that we all have different perspectives. And remember, not every students are on the same level. So, kailangan talaga aware ka sa iyong estudyante, di ba? And when you're reviewing your lesson plan, you also try to preview it as a student. Na madali ba nila maintindihan to? And the number one here you can see on the screen is really listen. So please always listen to each and every one of your student, which means give them their own time to shine, to explain, to participate, and allowing them to share their thoughts in front of everyone. And marami kang time na makikita there are quiet students, and that's fine because you're still building their confidence. But make sure that you continue building their confidence even though nasa virtual platform lang kayo. You should also have a question and answer portion, o, di ba? Pang Miss Universe lang ang approach. Q&A really allows the students to bring out their doubts if they're not clear on specific points. So, create that ambience for them and that approach na normal lang na pwede kayo magtanong. Don't hesitate na hindi ka kasi nakikinig, Sharon, kaya nagtatanong ka na naman ng ganyan. Di ba? Give them that space na I can ask, especially pag hindi ko naiintindihan. So, they will get that confidence. And feel free to compile those frequently asked questions na nakikita mo dumarating sa mga estudyante. Compile it na you think it's important for them to know. So once you compiled it, then you can kind of save it in your FB Messenger or your FB Facebook, yung area ng classroom nyo doon. And they can just go to that instead of going to you all the time asking the same questions repeatedly, di ba? Or you can tell them, oh, punta muna kayo sa frequently asked questions sa document before coming to teacher. Baka nandun na yung answers na hinahanap nyo. So, it also saves time for you and them. Tapos yung point na ask students to share their key learning. And when you're asking your students to share their key learning, make a mental note as a teacher of those students who haven't yet participated. Para naman sa next class, sila naman ang focus nyo muna mag-present or opportunity to present as well and to participate. Para everybody really has a chance and opportunity to join the session. Tapos the fifth point, this is very powerful, recapping. Kasi It's a best practice in spending some time for recap. It could be at the beginning of your class, just checking in. Ano naintindihan nyo kahapon? Or what do you remember from our yesterday's class? Let me know, guys, on the chat pod or sa whiteboard, or feel free to speak out loud. Gusto ko marinig kayo lahat mag-participate. Ganon, di ba? And then towards the end, probably make sure that you save enough time for a good transition. So hindi kayo nagmamadali na, o ayan, matatapos na tayo na oras, okay lang, gawin nyo na to sa homework para ka naka-fast forward. Make sure that you also save 5 minutes to, okay, is everybody clear with today's lesson? Kaya nga yung preparation is really a key factor so that you can time in your start time and your end time and the time in between. Para planadong planado. And again, it takes time for you to really enhance these skills kasi lalo na pag bago pa lang tayo sa virtual platform. But keep that in mind that you have a strong start of the session and a much stronger ending of the session para talagang naka-embed ang learning ng class and nag-enjoy sila in attending your classroom. Now comes our fifth, or not fifth, we are already on the eighth tip. Oh my goodness, ang bilis talaga, di ba? Now, it's all around your flexibility. Stay flexible, ika nga. Be ready to adjust kung kinakailangan, deadlines, grading policies, and your response to the students, kasi remember, we are all learning. This is new not only for you as teacher but for your students and for the parents of the students. So make sure that you are flexible, which means you need to probably adjust your teaching styles, more patience. I need to do yoga. Instead na magbilang ka ng 10, magbilang ka ng 20. And be present. Importante ito. Probably, you have 5 classes in a day and you're looking forward na, magsisimula yung last class ko ng 3 o'clock. And then, medyo nadidistract ka kasi meron kang big program do sa last class mo. That will not be helpful kasi each class deserve your full attention. Kaya be present when you're facilitating or when you're teaching separate groups of students. Make sure na nandun lahat talaga ang focus mo. And you empathize with them. Now, some children may not have the privileges as others. For example, yung ibang estudyante mo, pareho nagtatrabaho yung mga magulang. So, pamali-mali siya sa technology. So, empathize with them, especially at the very beginning of the first few days or even weeks or even months of school kasi talaga nangangapa and we don't have the best internet, diba? Ang hirap talaga ng internet sa Pilipinas. And then, of course, overcoming the challenges and the barriers. Now, don't feel defeated if things does not work. Remember that failure is part of experience, and it's safe to say that everyone all over the world are experiencing with the new normal. And there's no use worrying so much about the past. Kaya try just to concentrate more on the future, on what you could do better. Lalo na yung mga challenges and barriers, part yan ng ating learning process. Okay, moving on to the ninth tip. Malapit na. Ayan, feedback. Ay, importante ito, guys. Make sure that you track your students' progress. Hindi magugulat nila sila, oh teacher, bakit mo ako binaksak? Wala ka naman sinasabi na ang baba pala, magiging mababa pala grade ko pag hindi ako nagsasalita sa virtual class. Akala ko, nakikiko-operate ako kasi quiet lang ako habang nagtuturo ka. Gusto mo pala, nag-i-interact ako. So make sure that you give that feedback if that is one of your feedback. Kasi you need to build a culture of feedback in your class. Some students unfortunately do not accept feedback well. Okay lang yun. Kasi ganun din tayo, di ba? Sometimes sasabihin natin, uy, bigyan mo naman ako ng feedback dun sa niluto ko. Tapos sabi ng friend mo, ay, hindi siya masarap. Tapos, di ba masasaktan ka, ma-hurt ka, ay, naku, naghirap ako dyan, di na nga kita bibigyan next time. Ganon din ang estudyante. Students who are not resilient see feedback as a criticism. So, it's very important that you create that culture of feedback. And discuss this issue with the students' parents too, as well as, with them. Kasi para alam nila talaga kung ano nangyayari sa anak nila at makikita nila talaga yung concern mo sa mga estudyante. Make the difference clear to students that it's not criticism and that feedback is essential for anyone to understand how well they are performing and how they can grow further. importante yon. So, building a culture of peer feedback in your classroom, mas maganda yon, where you can encourage everybody to give and receive feedback regularly to help students really build that resilience na ay binigyan ako ni feedback ng classmate ko kasi gusto niya talaga na mag grow ako into my speech or kung ano pa yan sa project na yan. So create that. And you will also introduce the concept of yet. You know the word yet, Y-A-T. Example, oh, Sharon, you can't do that yet, but you will soon. Keep on reading. So, you're encouraging your students. Hindi mo sila dina-down. Kasi na-add mo lang yung simple three words, three letters called yet, right? And don't forget, there are two types of giving feedback. You need to give positive feedback to reinforce good behavior. Katulad ng, you did well in your speech, Sharon, keep it up. Or constructive feedback to change a behavior. Example, oh Sharon, you were talking a lot yesterday during the classroom program, and unfortunately, they're not related to the subject. So try to be mindful next time as it affects and distracts your other classmates. So very specific yung feedback ko, di ba? Kung ano yung ginawa ni Sharon the other day. So yan ang importante about feedback. Quiz marks, sharing constructive feedback, development skills, area of opportunities, and regular student-parent meetings. Kahit na nasa virtual lang. Actually, it's easier for you to have a monthly virtual parent meetings para lang ma-share nyo. So, for those who have started already, make sure that you plan that ahead and put that in everybody's calendar. Oh, mga parents, ito ang ating first feedback about how your kids are doing with their first month of online training. And gumawa ka ng presentation mo, they will be so grateful because you're giving them an insight on how their kids are doing in the virtual platform. And if there's anything that needs to be changed, then they can catch that early on so that they have plenty of time to maneuver and really improve what needs to be improved, diba? So yan ang feedback part. And finally, sa last point natin, ito ang talagang highly recommended. Make sure that you have fun. You are the key to your success and to your students' success. So make sure that you're leaving them that happy thoughts, that happy, ay naku, na-achieve ko yung dapat namin ma-achieve. Ay, alam ko yung lesson plan namin. Ay, alam ko yung darating sa test namin. So do not forget to have fun, and your dedication and effort really matters, and the best way that you can measure it is the way that your students are picking up their lessons, the way that they get excited when they start your class, your virtual classes, when they submit their homeworks, when they submit their project, and enjoy those mini celebration and share that positive vibes. Importante yun, lalo na sa virtual platform. Have a virtual party. Oh, kids, on the first Monday of the month, let's put some time, maybe 10 minutes, to kind of enjoy kung ano ba yung na-achieve natin last month, diba? Here's our top 3 students. Ito yung ginawa nila, kaya sila top 3. So, everybody will be engaged, and, there's a little bit of competition, but a healthy competition, but you're creating that interest to them. So, yan ang top 10 tips ko, which I hope you find useful. Kasi kung ako yung estudyante, and, I would really, really appreciate this kind of things. And, I enjoy attending online training. And I do get bored as well. Kasi sometimes when I attend online training, estudyante rin ako. Pero I can tell you that when I attend some of my children's online virtual class, makikita mo ako, minsan ako sumasagot, ay, ito ata ang sagot nun. And minsan, I also make mistakes. Sabi ko, ay, hindi pala yun ang sagot. Akala ko yun. So that's one. I can give you an example. The day before yesterday, teacher was teaching about the Mongoloids culture in the Philippines, and I was learning as well, and I was like, oh, it was really our culture pala na yung Mongoloids was the first part of our history, nakasama pala talaga yun. So you learn as well as parents. Kaya make sure that you have fun and celebrate those mini celebration. Well, guys, that's it. That wraps up my 10 tips, and I hope you enjoyed those 10 tips. If there's anything that you think I may have missed, of course, Free lang na mag-comment kayo sa comment boxes below, and of course feel free to subscribe and click on the notification bell para pag meron akong future online training, please do attend. And I do invite collaboration. So if there's anybody there who'd like to co-facilitate with me, that will be such an experience. Feel free to do that. So, this is Sharon speaking from Sharon's Virtual Diary, and it's great to be with you today. And I look forward to welcoming you in my future programs. And mag-watch na rin kayo ng mga ibang uploads ko, more on cooking and being an OFW mom. So, bye for now, folks, and enjoy ang YouTube. Take care. See you soon.